Hello everyone, I am Soumya, currently pursuing MBA at Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering, Bangalore. I have an assignment on types of price elasticity of demand. Subject is managerial economics. Is elasticity of demand. The variation in demand in response to a variation in the price is called the price elasticity of demand. It may be also defined as ratio of the percentage change in quantity of demand and percentage change in price particular commodity. The formula for calculating elasticity demand is quantity divided by percentage change in price of demand. This is the price and this is quantity. When price is changes, the quantity of supply also changes as well as the demand curve flow down. Types of price elasticity. There are five types in price elasticity. The first one is perfectly elastic demand. When the small changes in price of a product causes of major changes in the demand, it's said perfectly elastic demand. In perfectly elastic demand, a small rise in a price results in fall demand to zero, while small fall in the price causes increase the demand to the infinity. In such case, the demand is perfectly inelastic. That means elastic that equal to infinity. The degree of elasticity of demand helps to the defining the shape or slope of a demand curve. Therefore, elasticity of demand can be determined by the slope of determined curve and higher the elasticity of demand. Here, figure 2 shows perfectly elastic demand. Here, OX is its represent quantity of demand and OP represent price. When prices changes, the demand will be in zero only. So elasticity is equal to infinity. Elastic demand is the theoretical concept and concept be applied by the real situation. However, it can be applied in cases such as perfectly competitive market and homogeneously product. In such cases, the demand for product of an organization is assumed to be perfectly elastic. One is perfectly inelastic demand. A perfectly inelastic demand is one when there is no changes in produced in the demand of the production which change its price. The numerical value of perfectly inelastic demand is zero. EP, that means elasticity is equal to zero. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, curve is represented as a straight vertical line which is shown in figure 3. This is figure 3. OQ represents quantity and OY axis shows the price. When price changes, the demand will be constant. There is no effect on demand. Perfectly inelastic demand, the theoretical concept, it is cannot be applied in a practical situation. However, in case essential goods such as salt and some of the FMCG goods, the demand doesn't change with the change of the price. Therefore, demand for essential goods is perfectly inelastic. Third one is relatively elastic demand. The relatively elastic demand refers to the demand when the proportionate changes produced in the demand is greater than the proportionate change in price of product. The numerical value of relatively elastic demand ranges between 1 to infinity. Mathematically, relatively elastic demand is known as more than unit elastic demand. That means elastic is greater than 1. For example, if price of the product increases by 20% and demand product will decrease by 25%, then demand would be relatively elastic. The demand curve of relatively elastic demand gradually sloping as down in figure 4. For relatively elastic demand, OX axis represent quantity of demand and OY axis represent price. When prices slightly change, the quantity of demand changes in large amount. So the demand curve gradually sloped. So the elasticity is greater than 1. For example, the price of the particular brand of cold drinks increases from 15 to the 20 rupees. In such case, consumer may switch to the another brand of cold drinks. However, some of the consumer will consume the same brand. Therefore, a small changes in price can cause us to the larger changes in demand of the product. That's called relatively elastic demand. Then fourth one is relatively inelastic demand. The relatively inelastic demand is one of the percentage change in produced in the demand less than the percentage change in the price of the product. For example, the price of the product increases by 30% and demand for the product decreases by the 10% and the demand would be called relatively inelastic. The numerical value of relatively inelastic ranges between the 0 to 1. The elasticity is always lesser than 1. Marshall has termed relatively inelastic demand as elasticity being less than unity. The demand curve of relatively inelastic demand is rapidly sloping as slowing in figure 5. In this figure, OX axis represents quantity of demand and OY axis represents price of demand. When the prices changes, it's equal to the quantity of demand changes. So the demand curve sloping equally. So elasticity demand is lesser than 1. That's called relatively inelastic demand. It's the last types of price elasticity of demand, unitary elasticity of demand. When the proportionate change in the demand produce the same changes in price of the product, the demand is referred a unitary elasticity of demand. The numerical value of unitary elasticity of demand is equal to 1. That means elasticity that equal to 1. The demand curve for unitary elastic demand is represented as a regular hyperbola as shows in figure 6. From the figure 6 it can be interpreted that changes of the price, that means OP1 to the OP2, produces the same changes in demand of Q1 and Q2. Therefore, the demand is unitarily elastic. That's called unitarily elastic demand. Here I conclude that price elasticity of demand is measured how much quantity of demand changes in responses to change in price. It calculated on the percentage of change of quantity demand with the 1% increases in price while keeping everything else as same. For example, if elasticity is -2, then 1% increases price will be result in a 2% decreases in the quantity of demand. In general, price elasticity of negative but the same exemption. For example, the given goods are two types of goods have a positive elasticity which are rare exemption from law of demand. Thank you for watching this video.